We're holding Daf base. That's 82, 82A towards the bottom. What is it? It's 6 lines from the bottom. Starts with the words Kansa Hare Ishta. So we thank Hashem. We're able to learn every day. So let's start learning. We should have basic English immediately. And unfortunately, my father. Okay. The Mishnah said, Kansa Hare Ishta. If the Yavam marries the Shemeres Yavam, okay, that means this woman had lost her husband. The husband passed away. The brother now married her. So there were all these halachas about the property going over from the brother to the new husband. What type of property was dedicated to the ksuba? Whatever the case is, once he marries her, then it becomes like a regular wife. And whatever halachas applied to her, applied to this marriage as well. It was all the questions were in the interim. She was like an arusa. She was like a betrothed. We were there could have been some differences. Well, the Gemara says, "My help is." So, what are you referring to when you say she becomes like his wife after the Yava marries the Yavama? So Rabbi Yossi Bar Hanina, he's an early Amira in Eretz Yisrael, says, there's two things that are relevant here. What it really means is that, first of all, he's allowed to divorce her with a get. And second of all, he's allowed to remarry her afterwards. The Gemara says, Magarsha beget pshita. That seems quite obvious that he can divorce her with a get. Every woman, we believe in divorce. Well, that it's allowed, right? Not like the mother, right? So the answer is, the Gemara says, that's obvious. The Gemara says, well, the time of the It says, well, this was a Yavama, and it says that he should marry her. Maybe if he wants to divorce her, a get would not be enough, and he needs to do chalitza as well. Remember, if he didn't want to marry her, he had to do chalitza. Now that he's married her, maybe to divorce he needs a get and chalitza, or maybe just chalitza. No, once he married her, she becomes a regular wife, and a get would be sufficient for divorce. Machzira pshita, he's allowed to remarry her. That also seems obvious. Gemara says, no, it's not so obvious, because the Torah says that he's supposed to marry his brother's wife, the widow, which he did. But now that mitzvah is off, because he already performed the mitzvah, maybe now he's not allowed to marry her because it's his sister-in-law. He can't remarry her. He already did the mitzvah that the Torah asked. The Gemara says, Kamash Malan, that he is allowed to. He's allowed to remarry her. The Gemara says, that was good logic. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's actually not allowed to remarry. So the pasuk says that he takes her as a wife, which means that once he takes her, she becomes a regular wife, which means that he's allowed to remarry his sister-in-law for a second time. Yeah. Okay, Kesubos Daf. It said that the Yavam, the Ksuba doesn't come from his property, it comes from the estate of his deceased brother. My time, what's the reason for that? Because Isha Hikna Layman Hashemayim. He was sort of forced into this by the Torah. The Eibishter said that he has to marry her. So if that's the case, he doesn't have to write the document that he's now pledging a ksuba. He was forced into this. So therefore the ksuba comes from the brother. Okay. The deceased brother's estate. He doesn't get a new ksuba. I don't know. Is there some sort of new document? Sure. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is in the document. That's interesting. The document is not the critical thing. The document is just a test to what the obligation. The obligation is the critical part. And the obligation comes from the first husband's estate. Let's say the first husband doesn't have the means, the estate does not have enough to cover a ksuba. So then Islam Misheni, then the second husband has to fill in, and that's a rabbinic rule, because they should like take Kalabain of Leitzia. I guess all ksuba is rabbinic. But the rabbi said that he has to fill in for this because we don't want any marriage that it should be easy for him to divorce her. Now we say, he's not supposed to say, your ksuba is sitting there on the table, and now I can sell the rest of the property. Rather, all of the property is supposed to be subjugated to the lien, subject to the lien of the ksuba. So we said this in the Mishnah twice. Once we said it regarding the yavam. Should not say this to the yavama, that I've dedicated the money from the estate for your ksuba, and now I'd like to sell the rest of the property. You can't say that. And then the Mishnah continued and said, and also no man should say this to his wife, that here's the money for your ksuba, and it's on the table, and the rest I'm going to sell. Now the truth is he's allowed to, but it says my v'chein. Why does he have to go ahead and say that he's dedicated the money for the ksuba? Why should he not say that? V'chein, and also. That means, and also. What are you referring to? Well, the Gemara says, you see, by the Yavam, he never committed to subject his future properties that he's going to purchase to the lien of the ksuba. He never committed to that. So we could say that maybe we don't want him to designate a certain property for the ksuba, because maybe that property is going to get lost, and then there'll be nothing left for the ksuba. However, by a regular husband, we are in the ksuba. It says the kanai, the kanina, that what I own and what I will own is all subject to the ksuba. So then we don't have the same concern that maybe the objects that were there are all going to be lost, because whatever he gets in the future is also going to be subject. So maybe over there he can designate. Maybe she's not worried that there's not going to be money, because he's going to purchase new things if the old things get lost. Well, Kamashma comes to tell us that you shouldn't do it anyway, even for a regular husband and wife. You should not designate the money for the ksuba. Rather, all his property is designated to the ksuba. You shouldn't limit the designation of the lien to certain items. It's rather everything is subject to him. Umar says, Girsha, if he divorced her, ain't la ksubasa. All she gets is a ksuba. And the idea over there was that then he was allowed to sell all the other property that was subject to the ksuba, because she got the ksuba, now the rest is freed up. So Gersha he's on. I'm sorry. Right. Yeah. No, we're not referring to the percentage. What we mean is that every single property that the person has is subject to the lien that if he passes away or if he divorces his wife, the wife can come and collect from anything. The original 100 turns, yeah. Now, if there's different properties, she gets from the ziburis, the lower class property. Doesn't get the higher. It's not like she can really take them anything. It's just all his property is subject to that lien. Okay. what we just learned was that if he divorces her, then he can sell the rest of the estate. Well, Gersha, in Laliksabasa. If he divorces, all she gets is a ksuba. The Gemara says Gersha in like Gershalai. When can he sell the rest of the estate? Only if he divorces her. But this takes us back to the statement of Rababa, which we thought maybe was really Rav. Remember that yesterday from the Gainim, that he asked Sumchas, can a person sell the estate? He says that's only if he would divorce her, or if he was a kohen, he convinced her to allow him to sell. Okay. If he marries her back, then she's just a regular wife, and all she has is a ksuba. What chiddush is there in this? Tanina, I have a mishnah. This is very interesting. If someone divorces a wife and then marries her back, the original ksuba is still in place. She never collected the ksuba. The original, he reaccepts that old obligation. Well, the obligation never went off because he never paid it. He didn't pay it, so he still owes that. But he doesn't owe it now because he's remarried to her. He'll only owe it again if she can't collect every time she gets divorced. They said they joked in the Desmond where someone comes in, he wants to divorce his wife. They said, "You want to go to therapy first or something? You want to do something?" Like, no, it's over. It's over. So okay, it's over. They get the sefer and they get the Adam, and he says, okay, they write the get. The hand said the get. It says, whatever you're supposed to say by the get. She's divorced. And then he takes out a ring. He says, Adam, just watch. He takes out a ring from his pocket and he puts it on her finger. There's a Riyat Mekadesh. Like, you're crazy. We just went through this whole process and now you married her again. So he said, for his second wife, she's okay. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the ksuba, but that's what we're learning here, that the ksuba is the same ksuba. Well, Mal the Tema, we have a Mishnah, so why do we have another Mishnah? Why do we need this Mishnah? It says Mal the Tema Ishtihu the Iu Kasavla Ksuba Binei. Avu Yavamta Delayu Kasavla Hecha the Garsha Vahadshayim Ksuba Minei Kamash Malan. This is very interesting. On a regular wife, if he divorces her and then he remarries her, who agreed to that ksuba? He did himself. Now he made the first ksuba, and he divorced her. He remarries her, so that ksuba is still there. On this marriage, who made the first ksuba? The brother. The brother died. Now he remarried his brother's wife, so the original ksuba is there. But now when he divorces her, maybe when he remarries her, that's an original marriage that he's doing. Maybe he needs to make a ksuba from himself. Mashmalan, that the old ksuba of the brother still there. That's a chiddush. No? No. He divorced her, but he didn't pay it yet. She was still in the house. Still living on that stage, remarried. Then you would have to do an ksuba. I think so, yeah.
Rabbi, sorry, could you say that again? The ksuba that the deceased wrote?
The deceased wrote, that stays for the marriage of the yavam and the yavama, because the ksuba comes from the estate. Now he divorced her. And he remarries her. So here I could have thought that maybe it's not the original ksuba. He never paid the ksuba yet. But I would think that maybe he now has a new obligation of his own ksuba, from his own funds to make a new ksuba. Kamash Malan, that the old ksuba is still good. That debt that comes from the brother is still there. No, well, the obligation would be the 200 from the old one. Yeah, interesting point. You want it to be 300 now because he wants it to go down, but he still owes. He still owes from the first one.
Because that would be 300. I'm sorry. Yeah, but in the first case,
Yeah.
you said
Right.
But then she's double dipping. She already got it. Why should he have to remarry it? She wants to remarry. Because she already got it.
Right.
That's
The problem is that a man can't be married with a wife that he can get rid of so easily.
Oh, he ain't getting rid of her so easily. He got married in
No, that she didn't. Unless it costs money, they'll just divorce it. You have to make it very different for her looks. Okay. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Rishena Yikesam Basilam Masayim Al Mana. We go back over here. We get some background to this. Originally, they would have a ksuba, 200 coins for the basula, 100 coins for a widow. But you maskinin, but the women maskinin means the women would get old. Maskinin means women would get old, right? Or means the men would get old. The men would grow old. Well, and they wouldn't get married. Until Shimon ben Shattach came along and instituted that, you see, they didn't know that they would get the money because they would designate coins, but there was just coins that were there, but the coins could get lost and they didn't know if they would actually get it. Became complicated. The Shimon ben Shattach said that it's not just that there's designating coins. What turns out is that all the person's property is subject to a lien that she can come and collect. So then the women agreed to get married.
But it's the opposite of before. We could get the fruits, but you can get the property. She gets the property.
Right. Tanya Namihachi was also taught in a brisa, we have the same thing in a brisa, that the men would get old, they wouldn't get married because the women wouldn't agree. So what they said was, you know what, we're going to actually take the ksuba money and we're going to put it somewhere in a safe deposit box in her father's house. Don't worry, you're guaranteed to get the money. It's going straight at the beginning of the marriage. It's already designated away in the father's house. Well, what would happen now is because the money was designated away, whenever he would get angry, he would just say, the money, I don't have the money anyway, it's in your father's house. I'm gonna just get out of here and take the money from the father's house. Bad enough. He burnt the breakfast. So they instituted that they put it into his father's house. I don't know what the big deal is. And say, go to my father's house and get it. Well, Ashiris, the wealthy ones, I guess the wealthy men, that he had additional parts to the ksuba. So he always nice a colossus shel kesef shel zav. They would make it they would turn it into baskets of silver and gold. Some sort of basket that they would wear on the head, that they would use for spinning bread. Well, aniyas of it. The poor women would turn into. I have two versions of it here. Of it, so maybe like one version is that it was like a chamber pot, and the other version is that they would turn it into a copper oven. There's also a bowl that they would use to collect the grapes that they would use to, yeah. This should not be mixed up. Yeah, it was for urine. They collect urine, yeah. So no, about to. But would say still when he would get angry because it was already designated and he wasn't able to use that money. He would say, well, just go take it and go. It's all sitting there for you. So what the change over here was a big change. That it wasn't that there was money that was set aside for the ksuba. There was no money set aside. He had to come up with the money to be able to divorce her. It wasn't in his savings account. It was in his checking account. So he has to figure out how to get that money to be able to divorce her. He's like, well, I can't divorce her today. I don't have it. I'm waiting for a check to come in. So that way, it gets postponed and okay. I don't know. It's not the new parak. I'm not sure why.
His property business slows him down.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's a fellow that we knew that was divorced, and I guess the divorce was for a long time until he was able to get remarried. He said still he shouldn't have divorced her, and he's so lonely now. And he didn't see like whatever leads to. Anyway, I think he got remarried after. Okay.
What's the point?
Not her. Not her.
What's the point of the story?
Just stick it out. The professor asked, "What's the point of the story?" Okay. Okay. Someone tells his wife, I don't need any of your things. Dinu dvarim means I have nothing to do with your property. He's marrying her, and he's supposed to get benefits from her property. Nixi maluk. He's supposed to eat the fruits of it, but he says, I don't want any of it. Well, he wasn't specific about what he's giving up. So the Mishnah is clarifying that what he gave up was not the fruits. He can still eat the fruits of her property. And if she passes away, Yarsha actually inherits the property. The Gemara, the Mishnah asks, this is like a Gemara type of question. So what did he mean? What did he mean when he said that I have nothing to do with your property? What he meant was, the Mishnah answers, that she's allowed to sell. Remember, she wasn't allowed to sell property because she was a quasi-partner. The husband was a quasi-partner of hers because he had the benefits of the property. He owned that. He owned the payers. So, but now because he said that I don't have anything to do with your possessions, that means she's allowed to sell. He's still allowed to eat. We're going to see what's going on over here. Very interesting Gemara the way it explains this. Well, let's see, he specifies this a little bit better. He's actually writing this in the document. He says, I have nothing to do with your property or the fruits. Well, if that's the case, he doesn't eat the fruits either. She's allowed to sell, that also, but he also doesn't eat the fruits. But if she passes away, he still inherits. What about the fruits of the fruits? We'll have to see what that is. The Gemara will explain. But what about that? He said, the Rabbi Yehuda says he's allowed to eat the fruits of the fruits. I have nothing to do with your property or with their fruits. Or with the fruits of the fruits forever. Now he adds in the word forever here, which the Gemara is going to discuss. But if that's the case, then he doesn't have the fruits or the fruits of the fruit. Let's say he says during your life, the same thing, during your lifetime and after she passes away. Eino oichel peris b'chayav b'meis eino yarsha, then he doesn't inherit her either. Reb Shimon Gamliel Leimer in Meisa Yerushener, Reb Shimon Gamliel says, no, that much he can't do. He doesn't have the rights to do that because he's making a condition. He's making a stipulation against what the Torah rules. And the Torah rules that he inherits his wife. He can't say, I'm not going to inherit you, because he's making a stipulation against the Torah. Obviously, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel agrees, is of the opinion, Reb Shimon Gamliel is of the opinion that the husband inheriting the wife is a biblical law.
So that includes also.
Yeah.
So you can't.
You can't get out of that. It's going to have to inherit it.
I'd have to be in writing.
We'll see in a moment.
Okay.
Good point. The Mishnah concludes, tonight bottle, the stipulation is nullified. It means it's nothing. So, Tani Reb Chia taught, doesn't have to be in writing. Same thing would apply if he would say it.
What about like the
Dowry, I think he keeps, she does, right? It doesn't come back there. I think by the betrothal, we had a discussion about that. But in the marriage, I think he keeps that. Right. 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 There was a certain type of dowry. Horses are, it had to be estimated its value, and then it goes back to, and it was estimated at the time of the wedding. And then it's called the iron sheet. Remember the same person.
Yes. Actually, so if we start thinking there is problematic.
Oh wow, yeah. Interesting point. Yostal is pointing out that if this is if we accept Reb Shimon ben Gamliel or the halacha, then this would affect the prenuptial agreements, because he can't make a stipulation against the Torah. So it would have to be done that the money would have to be distributed before she passes away. And then he can do that. We saw that he can say, I have nothing to do with your property, and then she's allowed to sell it or probably give it away as well.
That's a claim for that. Can we make one of those like? Not really.
I had the risk. A chametz sale.
Tell me something.
I think there's a way of doing it in a will where it's somehow, I'm not sure how they make it Kenyan beforehand or something. I'm not sure. Okay, now the Gemara says, what does it matter if he says this? Tanya, we have a brisa. Let's say there's partners. One of the partners says to his friend, I don't have anything to do with you. I have nothing to do with this field. I have nothing. My hands are removed from it. He didn't say anything. Now, what happens right then is that the partner takes everything, and he comes back and he says, "What are you doing? That was my thing." He said, "But you said ainly asik pem. I have nothing to do with it." Well, the problem over there was that he never said that it was a gift. He didn't specify what he's doing with it. He just like, my hands are removed from it. So Amri the Berabiane because of Lavai Darusa. Here we're talking about that he wrote it or said it according to Reb Chia while they're still betrothed. So what we're saying is like this. He never had it yet. Kidder Rav Kana, I mean. I'm sorry. Kidder Rav Kana, like Rav Kana said, that if there's money coming from another source, he can say that he doesn't want it. How does he do that? Look the Rava. It goes follows like Rava. A person can get out of one of the takanas chachamim. You can say, I'm not interested in it. For example, this case. The Gemara says, Mike, what do you mean this case? Like Ravuna says, a woman can say to her husband, you don't need to support me. It's fine. I'll keep my my own income. Now, it was instituted because not every woman would be able to earn enough that she could afford her own livelihood. So it was instituted that the income should just go to the husband, and she would be sustained by the husband. Now, let's say she says, "I'm not interested in that takanas chachamim because I can earn my own income, or maybe I need more than what you're offering." So, different diet. So I want to support myself. So she's allowed to do that. So she can get out of a takanas chachamim. So here also, there was a takanas chachamim that he's supposed to get the peiros from her property. And since it's before he actually acquired it, so he's able to say, just my hands are removed from it. And then it doesn't come to him. If they would have already been married, then he wouldn't be able to say. He would have to say, "I'm giving it to you." He would have to use an expression of giving. But here, he doesn't even have to use an expression of giving. He just say, "I'm removed from it. I have nothing to do with it," and it doesn't come to him because it after betrothal before the marriage. Gemara says, if he doesn't want the takanas chachamim, then why does it have to be before the betrothal? Maybe even after the marriage. Maybe why does it have to be before the marriage? Maybe even after the marriage, it should be the same thing. The Gemara says, once they're married, they become like partners. Then, in order to get out of it, he has to actually give it as a gift. And that's the expression has to be a different expression. He could do it, it just has to be different. Has to say it different. Rava Amar Yada Yadifa Miyada. Rava says that he even has an upper hand over her. It's not just that they're equal partners, but he's a stronger partner than her. Gemara says, what's the difference? Nafkamina. The Shemer Siyavam. The difference would be when it's one step down, Shemer Siyavam. If there's a machlekes Abai and Rava about how to divide her property when she dies as a shemer yavam, how that works. Whatever the case is, when it's a step down from an actual marriage, because it's only shemer yavam, she's waiting for the yavam to marry her. So then, if his hand is stronger, then he still has a partnership there. But if his hand was just equal, now it's even weaker because it's a step down, then that would affect the arrangement. Are they equal partners, husband and wife? Or is he a stronger partner in her property? So Rava said that he's a stronger partner. So what's the difference? The difference is if you take the marriage one step down, they're not actually married, but she's waiting to marry him because he's the brother of the deceased, separate marriage. So then, if he would normally be a stronger partner, then now he would still be a partner. But if he was normally an equal partner, now he would be weaker. Yeah, this is a nice long Rashi. Rashi goes to the Gemara and Yivamas that spells out the difference. Okay, Ibaylo. Where's the question? Kana miyadi mahu. Rashi learns that we're talking about now the brisa that we quoted about a partner that wants to get out of partnership, but he uses the wrong expression, and he just says, "I have nothing to do with this," but he didn't actually give it to the partner. He didn't give it over. He didn't use the expression that I'm giving all my shares to you. But let's say he made a kinyan. So, Amar Rav Yosef, Midina Dvarim Kana Miyadei. What's the kinyan? He lifted up a handkerchief. Now, the kinyan is only as strong as the agreement, and the agreement was nothing. He agreed to a nothing, so he was left with so he didn't get out of the agreement is just to whatever words he said. Now, since the words don't mean anything, so the agreement, so the kinyan doesn't take effect. No, that kinyan has its own strength, and he actually just took himself off the property. He moved himself from the property. Amar Abaya says, so now there's a machlekes between Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Yosef is Abaya's teacher. Abaya says, Mistaber Milsa to Rabbi Yosef, that he would accept the view of Rabbi Yosef, his teacher. That's only if Ba'ira. Okay, what happened was, one partner, there's Reuben and Shimon. Reuben says, I'm out of here. And he makes a kinyan, lifts up the handkerchief. So, but he didn't say that he's giving his share to the other partner. So, well, Shimon shows up and tries to take everything. And Reuben says, no, give that back. So Abaya says, Rabbi Yosef is right, that Reuben can get back his share. Because the whole kinyan was just on his words, which didn't mean anything. Reuben and Shimon. Reuben says, I'm out of here. Shimon decides to say, okay, so he takes everything. Reuben says, no, I want it back. Yeah, here we're talking about partners, two partners that own a field. No, it's nothing to do with marriage. Yeah, I don't know how he's learning it. I'm learning it from Rashi, that this Gemara's question is based on the Brisa. There is another way Tosfos learns that it's going back to the Mishnah and it's referring to a man and wife. But Rashi's learning it that it's just the two parts, with two cases there. So, but if he's just standing there and he doesn't protest the Shimon taking everything, so migufa shel karka kanamiyade, then obviously that kinyan was stronger than just the words that he said. Amar Ameimar says hilchos migufa shel karka kanamiyade passes like Rav Nachman, that the kinyan takes over, and it's actually he has given up his share. Amar Avashi la Ameimar ba'ira baimet. What are you referring to? Are you referring to when the person in Ruvain protests, or to when Ruvain just lets it happen? Usually what happens is that people rethink, and then they go back and they say, well, maybe it didn't really mean that. I should really get that back. And then they come back a few days later and they want it back. So, but it's too late because they already made an agreement. So if the person does that, if he comes back a few days later, he says, I want the property back. Do you also say, is that when you said that the agreement is done? Or even if or did you say that even if he's shouting at the very beginning when Shimon's taking it away, that the agreement is done, it's too late? He says, Lamai nafkamina, what's the difference? Like Rabbi Yosef. Like Rabbi Yosef said, that's a big difference. It's really the way Abaya said. Rabbi Yosef said. Amalei, so Ameimar says, Leishmieli, I never heard of that difference. In other words, I don't hold of that difference. It means the deal is always a done deal once he makes a kinyan, even though the words was not.
Nowadays, all deals have a good example, some sort of
Right.
Whether it's a call. I mean, from my side, it's like say something like the range on Amazon. It says 30
days.
30-day return policy. So we bought the range because it's gas on top, electric on the power. Yes, well, it's a little bit too big. So about 3 inches. So it really causes a problem. So you want to return. So it took me 2 weeks to find out the return policy. What's your return policy? Oh, excuse me, if you want to return this, you pay for our shipping to you, plus your shipping back to us, plus at best, we only give you 80% of the thing. But if it was an open package, and of course it was open because I was going to look at it and it's any damage thing like a piece of styrofoam is obviously. The most we give you is between 50 and 70. This is true. 50 and 70, we figured it out. If we give it's almost like I gotta pay them to take it back. So right now I have this one time to do it, $900. That if I give it back, I'm gonna have to pay $500.
Anyone want to range?
Yeah. I give a great deal. Beautiful range of electric engines. It's the top. It's the But
How
I
about-
just said, be careful. Read the fine print.
Right. I'm sorry.
To make something hefker, you don't need a Kenyan, right?
Right. I think you're going to say that it's Hefker. Problem is, his expression over here was not perfect, that it was Hefker either.
Okay.
I'm not sure, like, how. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not details about this. Ainly Asif, but the other is selected amendment. No, but but here there's no one has a claim on it. It's just it's half his partner. But he could make his part half Hefker and let his partner take it over. Maybe the pshat is that partner didn't make a kinyan in it. The partner just considers it a gift. And without a kinyan, he says, okay, it's mine. He gave it to me. He said, that means that it's mine. He says, no, I didn't mean that. Maybe the property isn't here. Maybe the property is somewhere else. And he wasn't able to. How do you make a kinyan in a property that's somewhere else? You got to go there and put a fence around it, whatever. They act like an owner. Okay. Imkain Lama Kasav, the Gemara asked, if so why did he write for her if she's still eating the fruits? Why do you write that he doesn't that I have nothing to do with your property? In other words, what purpose was that? B'temalei. Why doesn't she tell him, Mikol Mili Salikas Nafsha? You removed yourself from everything. This is a very interesting, this is like a fundamental question. He's now saying, what I removed myself from was the smallest amount. Why can't she say, no, you were vague. What you removed yourself was everything. You didn't specify that it was the smallest amount. So then it means you removed yourself from everything. Abaya gives us a big answer, a big rule. Yad balashtar al tachtaina. Whenever you have a document, and the document is ambiguous, so it means the smallest amount, the minimal amount, not the most. The one that's holding the document loses out on that. You should have specified that everything else that it means. Otherwise, we trim it down to the smallest amount that could be. One who's holding the document. So, in other words, she has a document. No, she has a document. And the document says that the husband had written to her that he doesn't want to have anything to do with their property. Now, since that could mean that he doesn't want to eat the fruits, he doesn't want it, it allows her to sell it, all of this. So we cut it down to the smallest amount, and her claim is the smallest claim. Now, right now, we're saying that the smallest claim is that if she wants to sell it, she can sell it. That's all she gets. But the husband still has to do it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Problem is that it's her property, and he's the mitzi. He ends up getting more. He ends up owning more of her property. He's still eating the pears and all of that. Really, people look on mitzi. Here it's a it is hers. They get divorced, she takes it back. Anyway, This is a rule in documents that the way you read a document is that it only says exactly what it says and no more.
So this is dollars. You know, $2.
$2. Right?
Not basic. That's satisfied. I think $1 million.
Right. That's probably how it would work in a document. I mean, I assume that's how documents work. You know, it doesn't. Would that a document today that's vague be more inclusive or less inclusive?
You look
But let's say you don't have the practice. What would be the default?
the ultimate argument.
So there we go. So that would be the same rule. Okay. The Gemara is a very interesting question. Why are you saying that her rights to sell the entire property is considered the more minimal reading of the document? Why shouldn't it be that him eating the fruits should be the minimal reading of the document, that he doesn't get the fruits? Now she's selling the whole property. She's allowed to sell the whole property. Really, it should just mean that she shouldn't be allowed to sell it. But what's the difference if he can't get the fruits? What's the difference if she could sell it or not? The difference is that if she passes away, then he'll inherit it. Now, if she can sell the whole property, he gets nothing. Well, Amar Abaya, Putsina Tav Mikra. It's better to have a little squash than a big pumpkin. Right. So, which means that he'd rather have the fruits now than, okay, if she passes away, he's not going to get it. That's a different story. That's much less. That's well, Ve'ima Miyarusha. Maybe it means that he just shouldn't inherit her. Amar Abaya Misa Shlicha Mechir LeShlicha. There's 3 parts to this property. Him inheriting her, him eating the fruits, and her being allowed to sell it. He can stop her from selling it. Well, what ends up happening is that the only thing that actually takes effect is that she is allowed to sell it. But he still eats the fruits and he still inherits it. Maybe it should mean that he shouldn't inherit her. The Gemara says, Misa Shricha, no. People die all the time. But Mechir LeShricha, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be sold. Not every property gets sold. But everyone, right? Taxes and so that's going to be a larger reading of the document, and we will only do the minimal reading of the document. If a person would be removing himself from something, he would be removing himself from the less common, not from the more common, and death is more common. He says, from your possession, that means from your possessions, but not the fruits. I'm still reading. Rashi is reading into the words what it means. Your possession, not the fruits. Your possessions are not after death. That after death, he still is going to take it. Okay. Yeah. Go to her family. Yeah, I think I should leave this rather than rush through it. Okay. Let's leave it over here. Have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Have a good Shabbos. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a good Shabbos.
Have a good Shabbos.